Picture this. It's Saturday afternoon and the house is quiet. Too quiet. Your kids are building their own lives elsewhere, maybe your partner has passed, or perhaps you've chosen to walk this chapter solo. You scroll through social media, seeing everyone gathered around dinner tables or traveling with friends, and something inside aches. You wonder, is this what my 60s are supposed to feel like? If you're nodding along, I want you to know something important right now. You are not broken, and you are absolutely not alone. Loneliness after 60 is one of the most underreported experiences facing American women today. Studies show that nearly 1/3 of women over 60 experience significant loneliness, yet we rarely talk about it openly. We've been taught that this should be our golden years, the time we finally get to rest and enjoy the fruits of our labor. So when loneliness creeps in, many women feel shame. They wonder what they've done wrong. But here's the truth. Loneliness isn't a personal failure. It's often a natural transition that comes with significant life changes. Retirement, empty nests, the loss of loved ones, changes in our bodies, shifts in friendships. These aren't small things. They're major life events that shake the very foundation of how we move through the world. The good news? This is also one of the most potentially powerful chapters of your life. You have wisdom, time, freedom, and most importantly, the ability to consciously design how you want these years to look. You're not waiting for permission anymore. You're not asking if it's okay to pursue what matters to you. This is your time. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you 10 life-changing practices that have helped countless women over 60 break free from loneliness and build meaningful, vibrant lives. These aren't theoretical concepts. They're practical, actionable strategies that you can start implementing today. Some will resonate immediately. Others might take time to feel comfortable. That's perfectly fine. Take what serves you and leave the rest. Let's dive in. Practice 1. Start a passion project, even if you have no idea what it is. One of the most powerful antidotes to loneliness is having something that excites you, something that gets you out of bed with purpose. Here's what often happens. When women retire or go through major life transitions, they suddenly have time, lots of it, but no clear direction. The identity that structured their days for decades is gone. Maybe you were a nurse, a teacher, a mother, or a business owner. Now what? That void can feel enormous. The secret is not to wait until you find your passion project. Most of us don't wake up knowing exactly what will light us up. Instead, start exploring. Have you always been curious about painting? Take a beginner's class at your local community college. Were you the family historian? Start a genealogy project. Do you love gardening? Join a community garden. Interested in writing? Many libraries offer free creative writing circles specifically for older adults. The key is movement, action, trying things. When you engage in something that requires your focus and creativity, something remarkable happens. You're no longer ruminating about loneliness. Your brain is occupied. Your hands are busy. You're learning, growing, and becoming someone new. And almost inevitably, you'll meet other people who share that interest. Actionable step. This week, make a list of 3 things you've been curious about since you were a kid, but never pursued. Pick one and research a class, club, or group dedicated to it. Sign up for something, even just a trial session. You're not committing to anything permanent. You're just exploring.
Practice 2. Redefine friendship and become a friendship architect. Here's something they don't tell you. Friendship changes after 60, and most of the friendships you had at 40 might not survive the transition into this decade. Why? Life gets complicated. Your friends might be caregiving for aging parents. Some have moved, others are dealing with health issues. Your closest friend might have been tied to a role you no longer have. The mom friend from your kid's school, the coworker you grabbed lunch with, the neighbor who moved away. These friendships were often circumstantial rather than deeply rooted. The women who thrive after 60 don't wait for friendships to happen. They become what I call friendship architects. They intentionally design their social life. This means being honest. Friendship after 60 requires initiative from you. It means sending that text first, suggesting that coffee date, inviting someone to a concert or a museum visit. It means being vulnerable enough to say, "I miss our conversations. Can we make this a regular thing?" It also means expanding your definition of friendship. Maybe you won't have that one best friend who knows everything about you, and that's okay. Instead, you might have a museum friend who you see monthly for cultural outings, a hiking friend, a book club friend, and an online community friend. These different friendships feed different parts of you. Actionable step. Reach out to one person this week. Not a long, complicated message, just a simple, "I was thinking about you. Would you be free for coffee next week?" If they say no, don't take it personally. Try someone else, and keep trying. Practice 3. Master the art of being comfortable alone. This might sound counterintuitive when we're talking about loneliness, but hear me out. There's a profound difference between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness is the painful feeling of disconnection. Being alone is a choice. It can be restorative, creative, and deeply peaceful. Many women in their 60s struggle because they haven't learned this distinction. They've spent their whole lives in relation to others, children, partners, colleagues. The idea of being alone terrifies them, so they feel desperate when solitude arrives. That desperation is exactly what creates loneliness. But when you learn to genuinely enjoy your own company, something shifts. You're no longer frantically grasping for connection because you can't stand being with yourself. Instead, you choose connection from a place of wholeness, not neediness. How do you develop this? Start small. Spend one evening alone without the TV on. Read a book, take a bath, go for a walk, journal, listen to music you love, cook a beautiful meal just for yourself. Notice how you feel. As you become more comfortable with solitude, you'll find that you have more emotional capacity for meaningful relationships. Many women in their 60s tell me that this was the most transformative shift for them. When they stopped being afraid of being alone, they stopped being lonely. They started saying yes to social activities because they wanted to, not because they were fleeing solitude. Actionable step. This weekend, spend at least 2 hours doing something alone that you genuinely enjoy. Make it nice. Light a candle, put your phone away, and actually be present with yourself. Notice what comes up. Practice 4. Join or create a community, a real one. Social media gives us the illusion of community, but it's not the same. Real community requires physical presence, consistency, and vulnerability. In the United States, there's been a dramatic decline in community spaces over the past few decades. Churches have smaller congregations, civic organizations have fewer members, neighborhoods are more disconnected. This is particularly hard on women in their 60s who grew up in a different era, when community was often built into daily life. The good news is that community spaces still exist, and they're hungry for people like you. Consider joining a book club, a faith community, a volunteer organization, a hobby group, or a fitness class. But here's the key: consistency. Don't just show up once, show up multiple times so people know your name and you become a familiar face. This is how real friendships develop, through repeated, genuine interaction. Many cities now have specific programs designed for women over 50 or 60. There are hiking groups, dinner clubs, travel groups, and creative circles. Some are structured organizations, others are informal meetups. You might find them through your library, community center, local newspaper, or online platforms like Meetup. Actionable step. Research one community group in your area that meets regularly. It should be something you're at least somewhat interested in. Maybe not your passion project, but something that intrigues you. Commit to attending at least 4 times before you decide if it's right for you. Practice 5. Use technology strategically. Yes, really. I know what you might be thinking. I'm not a tech person, but bear with me because technology can be a genuine lifeline when used intentionally. Video calls with grandchildren or distant friends, online communities focused on your interests, podcasts that make you feel less alone, virtual classes that teach you something new, email exchanges with friends you've lost touch with. These aren't substitutes for in-person connection, but they're powerful supplements. The key word is strategic. This doesn't mean scrolling mindlessly through social media for hours, comparing your life to others' highlight reels. That will absolutely increase your loneliness. Instead, it means joining a Facebook group dedicated to something you care about and actually participating in discussions, taking an online class or workshop that teaches you a skill, starting a virtual dinner date tradition with a friend or family member, listening to podcasts or audiobooks that stimulate your mind, connecting with online communities of people facing similar life circumstances. Many women over 60 have found genuine friendships and support through online communities. You might meet someone in an online writing group and discover you have incredible chemistry. You might join a virtual book club with women from all over the country who become your closest friends. Actionable step. If you're not already on a platform like Facebook or Zoom, ask a trusted family member or friend to help you get set up. Join one online community related to an interest of yours this week. Practice 6. Embrace physical activity as a social and personal practice. Here's something that often surprises women. Physical activity is one of the most underrated tools for combating loneliness after 60. First, there's the physical benefit. Exercise releases endorphins, improves sleep, boosts mood, and gives you more energy. When you feel better physically, you feel more confident and more capable. But there's also the social dimension. When you exercise with others, in a yoga class, a walking group, a swimming club, a dance class, or a gym, you're building community while you're building strength. These connections, formed through shared physical challenge and accomplishment, often run deep. The best part? There are programs specifically designed for women over 60. Water aerobics classes tend to be incredibly popular because they're low impact and sociable. Some communities have senior fitness programs that are structured specifically for older bodies. Walking groups are everywhere, and they're often free. If you've been sedentary, start gently. A 20-minute walk several times a week is perfect. The goal isn't to become an athlete, unless you want to. The goal is to move your body in a way that feels good, and to do it consistently with others. Actionable step. This week, find one physical activity you'd be willing to try. It can be simple, like a walking group or an online yoga class. Commit to trying it at least 3 times. Practice 7. Give your skills away. Mentor, volunteer, teach. By the time you reach 60, you've accumulated decades of knowledge and skill. You know how to do things. You've solved problems. You've navigated challenges. That expertise is incredibly valuable, and when you share it, something powerful happens. You feel needed and purposeful. Volunteering is one of the most overlooked antidotes to loneliness. Not only does it connect you with purpose, but it also connects you with other people, both those you're serving and fellow volunteers. Consider these possibilities: mentoring younger women or professionals in your field, teaching at your local library or community center, volunteering at a nonprofit aligned with your values, reading to children at your library, helping with a community garden or park cleanup, tutoring students in a subject you know well, using your professional skills to help nonprofits with their marketing, finances, or organization. When you volunteer, you're reminded that your life has value beyond your professional role or your role as a mother or partner. You're contributing to something larger than yourself, and you're building relationships with people who share your values. Actionable step. Think about a skill you have and an organization in your community that could use that skill. Reach out to them and ask how you might volunteer. Even a few hours a month can transform your sense of purpose.
Practice 8. Cultivate curiosity and become a lifelong learner. One of the greatest gifts of reaching your 60s is that you can finally learn for the pure joy of learning, not for a job or to improve your resume, but simply because you're curious. When you're engaged in learning something new, you're energized, your brain stays sharp, your sense of possibility expands, and very often, learning communities form naturally around shared interests. This can look like taking classes at a community college or lifelong learning institute, attending lectures or seminars on topics you care about, deep diving into subjects through podcasts and books, learning a language just for fun, taking up an instrument or art form, joining a discussion group about philosophy, history, or literature. Many universities now offer free or low-cost classes specifically for older adults. There are travel programs that combine learning with exploration. There are online platforms offering thousands of courses on nearly any topic imaginable. When you're learning, you have something to talk about. You meet people with similar intellectual interests. You expand your worldview. You remain vibrant and engaged with life. Actionable step: identify one subject you've always wanted to understand better. This week, find a free podcast series, a book, or a YouTube channel on that subject and dive in. Practice 9. Design your living situation intentionally. Sometimes loneliness after 60 is directly connected to your living situation. If you're living alone in a large house or in an isolated area, loneliness becomes your default state. This is worth thinking carefully about. You don't have to move, but you might want to consider whether your current living situation is supporting your well-being. Some possibilities: moving to a community with built-in social opportunities, active adult communities, co-housing, intentional communities, renting out a room in your home to provide income and companionship, moving closer to family or close friends, exploring senior living communities that offer activities and built-in social connection, moving to a walkable neighborhood where you can naturally bump into people, creating a household with other women your age who share expenses and life. This doesn't have to be a permanent decision. You can try something for a year and see how it feels. But if you're deeply lonely in your current situation, changing your physical environment might be the most important change you make. Actionable step: spend some time reflecting on your living situation. Does it support connection or isolate you? If it's isolating, research one alternative that interests you, even if you don't implement it right away.
Practice 10. Prioritize meaningful conversation and deep connection. Here's the thing about loneliness after 60. It's not necessarily about how many people you know. It's about whether you feel truly seen and understood by anyone. Surface-level friendships, people you chat with at book club or exercise class, have their place. But you also need people you can talk to about real things. People who ask follow-up questions. People who remember what you told them last month. People you can be vulnerable with. These deep connections require intention. They require you to be honest. They require you to show up consistently and to ask real questions of others. Practice asking better questions. Instead of, "How are you?" ask, "What's something that's been on your mind lately?" Instead of small talk, suggest going for a long walk where you can actually talk. Instead of group activities only, suggest one-on-one time with people you want to know better. Instead of scrolling your phone during time together, be fully present. Instead of waiting for others to reach out, take the initiative in creating depth. Many women find that as they get older, they have less patience for shallow relationships. You've learned enough about yourself to know what you actually need. Honor that. Invest your limited energy in relationships that feed your soul. Actionable step: think of one person you'd like to know better. Invite them for a longer conversation, a walk, a coffee date, or a meal. Plan to ask real questions and listen deeply. These 10 practices work best when they work together. You're not trying to do all of them at once. That would be overwhelming. Instead, you're slowly building a life structure that supports connection, purpose, and engagement. Start with practice that resonates most strongly with you. Maybe that's finding a community group. Maybe that's starting a passion project. Maybe that's learning to be comfortable alone so that you can approach relationships differently. There's no wrong place to start. As you implement these practices, you'll likely find that they reinforce each other. Your volunteer work connects you with a community. Your passion project introduces you to kindred spirits. Your physical activity gives you something to talk about. Your learning keeps you engaged and interesting. Your willingness to have real conversations deepens your friendships. Over time, you build not just a life that's less lonely, but a life that's genuinely rich and meaningful. Here's what many women discover in their 60s. This can be one of the best decades of your life. You have freedom you never had before. You have hard-won wisdom. You have time. You know who you are and what matters to you. You've released much of the self-doubt and perfectionism that drove your younger years. The loneliness you might be feeling right now isn't a sentence, it's a signal. It's your psyche telling you that something needs to change. And that's actually good news, because you have the power to change it. You have everything you need inside you already. You've survived challenges, you've built things, you've contributed, you've loved. That person, that capable, resilient, interesting woman is still there, and she has so much more to do. Your 60s aren't an ending, they're an opening. Make something beautiful of them. Thank you for watching until the end. Share one of these practices you're going to try in the comments. Let's support each other through this chapter of life. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Stay healthy and peaceful. See you in the next video.